What's up YouTube, and welcome to another draw along with me. Today's tutorial is this bat design. Now you don't need to worry about the canvas size for today because there's a Procreate file that you're going to need, which is in the description down below. So when you download that file, you'll already have the background color already set and the background texture, but you'll also find a link to this stencil within the layers so you can follow along nice and easily. If you're new here, I post Procreate content every single week, so if you'd like some tutorials to follow along with, hit that subscribe button down below. And if you're running out of Gel Create tutorials to follow along with, there's a link in the description down below to my Patreon. We can get access to even more tutorials every single month exclusive to Patreon supporters. And with all that said, let's get started. So once you've downloaded the Procreate file that's in the description down below, in this file you will see in the layers we've got a couple of different layers already set up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the stencil and start building up all the layers. So above the background group and below the stencil we're going to tap to create a new layer, and let's actually create another new layer and then swipe on both of them, and if you go from left to right you'll get the option of group, and then in this group now as well we'll start to add all the different content. If you've downloaded the palette as well, you'll see this collection of sort of grey colours, and then we've got some pink tones here for such things as the mouth and the ears. So we're going to use these greys just to create the shapes, and then we'll shade them all in afterwards. So the first step of this is to select this grey here on the left hand side, so that in the middle row, left hand side, and then we're going to go to our brush library, and we're going to go to calligraphy, and we are going to use the monoline brush. Now it doesn't really matter what your brush size is set to, we're just going to draw out some shapes, so just make it big enough that you can see the shape that you're happy with. Now one thing we also have to do is, everything here is very symmetrical, so we're going to use a drawing guide to assist with this to make sure we get the nice level of symmetry. So to do this you go up to your actions, and under canvas you will get the option of drawing guide. Now we want to turn that on, and we also want to go to edit the drawing guide. Now you want to go all the way to the right hand side if you're not already and tap on symmetry, and under options just make sure that you are on vertical. Now what that will do is that will place a line down the middle of your screen, and if you can't really see it you can change the colour to make life a bit easier. You can also increase the opacity of it just so that you can see it on your screen. But when you're ready, hit done and you'll get this line down the middle of the screen. And you want to go to your layers and make sure every layer now that we use going forward is layer assisted. So what we do on one side of the bat will happen on the other side of the bat. So on this layer here that's drawing assisted, let's get started, and the first thing we're going to do is draw in the main head shape. Now as I mentioned, it's a symmetry tool, so I can literally draw here and it'll go all the way around. So what we'll do is we'll just follow this shape here and then draw in the head, and we're going to keep building up all the different layers of the bat and then create our full design that we can then colour in and shade in. Now this is a guide shape, so you don't necessarily have to do it pixel by pixel, but when you're ready just drag and drop your colour in. Now we've got the head shape, we're going to go ahead and add in all the other shapes. So let's do the nose next. So we're going to go to our colours, we're actually going to switch it out to, let's say, this middle pink, so this one here, the bottom one out of the pink collection. We're then going to go back to the layers, we're going to create a new layer. I'm going to tap on that layer every single time and make sure it's drawing assisted. By default it won't be. And then we're going to draw in this nose shape here, so I'm going to start here, and potentially you want to make your brush size a bit smaller than I've got it, but we're going to go down here and just link up in the middle and then drag and drop your colour in. If you end up with any imperfections at the top here, such as where you started, just simply change your eraser to the monoline brush. So go to your brush library under the eraser and change it to monoline, and then just erase and just sharpen up any edges that you're unhappy with. Make life easier before you get all the way down towards the end of the design. Now this nose has then two extra layers that sit on top, the nostrils. So we're going to go to our layers, we're going to create a new layer, we're going to tap on that layer and we're going to make sure it's drawing assisted. We're going to go to our colours and we're going to switch it out. Let's just pick this dark colour in the bottom left, it's slightly off black. And then we want to draw in the nostrils, so let's just draw in a sort of rounded, almost like a teardrop shape, and then you can draw in the middle of the nostrils like so. Again, you can see like I'm slightly off of the stencil, just using it as a guide. Next let's move on to the mouth. So let's go to our layers, let's create a new layer, tap on it and drawing assist it, and continue with the same colour, we're just going to draw in the mouth. So we're going to start at the top, I might reduce my brush size all the way down. I'm going to start at the top here and then just curve and then do the top area there, and then from the bottom create a lovely little swooping line and link up in the middle, and then again drag and drop your colour in like so, and if you want to grab your eraser and you can just sharpen up that edge. So just follow your line that you drew in and then just sort of flick in the same direction to get a nice point on the edges. Next, let's go ahead and add the teeth in, but at this point we want everything to be contained within the mouth. So what we'll do is, we'll go to this layer, we're going to create a new layer. We need to make sure it's drawing assisted, so we tap on the layer and make sure it's drawing assisted. We then tap on that layer and we clipping mask it. So now everything we draw will be stuck within the boundaries of the mouth that we've also drawn. So let's go ahead and change our color out to white. So this one here in the top right of the second column, on the top of the second column. And then just draw in your teeth. So we're going to come down here, we're going to go across like so, and then just link your shape up at the top, and it's up to you if you want to colour it in or drag and drop, but once you've linked it up you can do either. And then we're going to draw in the bottom teeth as well, like so, and that's our teeth. We now want to add a tongue, but we want to make sure it's in behind the teeth. So let's go ahead and go back to the mouth layer that we created. Let's create a new layer, and it will sit in between the teeth and the mouth, which is perfect. And then let's tap on that layer and drawing assist it. Then change our color out. Let's go for the same pink as the nose. So let's go for this one at the bottom of the fourth column. And it's almost like an M shape. You just sort of create an M so that it dips in the middle a little bit. And then you can go all the way around the edges here. And then you can drag and drop your color in if you want to, or just color it in either way. Now we'll move on to the eyes. So let's go up to our layers, and then above our teeth, let's create a new layer. We don't want it clipped, so we'll make sure you don't have that arrow on the left. Tap on that layer and make sure it's drawing assisted, and then change your color out to white again. And then we want to draw in these circles here. So just hold your pen down when you get towards the end. Don't let go straight away. So get all the way around, hold your pen. That'll give you a perfect ellipse, but pop your finger on the screen and you'll get a perfect circle. And you can scale it up and down as big or as small as you like. And then drag and drop your colour in like so. Now with the eyes, the actual pupils of the eyes, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new layer. We're going to change our colour out to black, but you'll notice I haven't drawing assisted it. For the pupils, if you do them with the drawing assist sometimes, they could either be pointing inwards or outwards and they might look a little bit skewed. So what we're going to do is on this layer, we're going to draw in a circle and how big we want the pupil. So you might want to go nice and big so to get that cartoony effect or something maybe like that. And then drag and drop your colour in. And then once you're happy with the position of that eye, if you want to make sure you get that blue line running down the middle of the eye to let you know you are running in the middle of that circle. And if you don't see that, just go to snapping and turn it on, and then that will make sure that eye is nicely facing front on, nice and symmetrical to the actual circle. And then we'll go to our layers, swipe that layer to the left and duplicate it, and then grab your cursor and push it all the way to the left. Now you'll see I get 3 blue bars across the top of my circle there, which lets me know I've moved completely parallel from the right eye straight across. And because I've now nailed it in terms of where it sits in the middle of the white circle, I'm also getting that vertical line down the middle. This is all back down to snapping, and if you let go and then tap on your cursor, your eyes now are perfectly front on, nicely centered and nice and symmetrical. And then we can go to our layers and we can just pinch those 2 black pupils together, and then we've got the eyes. So we're going to continue now to draw in all the rest of the shapes. So let's change our colour back to that grey on the left hand side here that we started with. So the second colour in the first column. And then we need to add in the ears, but we need to, in our layers, understand where they need to sit. So they need to sit in behind the head. So we need to take a look at our layer structure, and we should have an empty layer underneath. If you don't, no problem, just tap on the head and then create a new layer, and then drag that head up above the empty layer we just created. Now on the empty layer we just positioned underneath, let's tap on it, as always make sure it's drawing assisted, and then we're going to draw in the ears. Now again, because it's drawing assisted, it will do it on both sides anyway, but we're going to draw in these lovely little swoops, and then I've let go and then come all the way around to draw in the ear. And then I'm going to go behind the head there and just link up to where I started so that I can drag and drop my colour in like so. Then let's go ahead and let's create a new layer. Let's tap on that layer and drawing assist it, but let's tap on that layer and clipping mask it, because now we want to add the inside of the ear but keep the whole shape. So we're going to go to our colours, I'm going to switch it out to the same pink that we've been using for everything else, so the bottom of the 4th column. And then we're going to sort of replicate the top curve and then use that pink just to create the inside of the ear. So we're going to come across here, hold your pen nice and smooth like so, and then go all the way around to your start point, and then drag and drop your pink in like so. And then looking at our ears now, we've got this lovely little sort of edge on the top there, but a nice big pink inside there. Now we can go ahead and draw in the body and the wings. So let's take a look at all our layers. Now this is all part of the head area. If you want to and you want to stay super organized, you could literally swipe on every single layer here and then group them together and rename that group, and you could call that head like so, and collapse that group down, because there is a few more layers to add if you're getting a bit cluttered. But on this group, create a new layer and then drag it underneath the head. Then let's change the color to this light gray on the bottom left, or the middle should I say, of the first column of grays. And again, let's draw in the body. So make sure on that layer we go back and we go to drawing assist before we get started. And then let's draw in the body. So we're going to come down this side here and then just link up and then just round it off at the bottom. And then at your start point, just draw all the way across to the other side, and then you can drag and drop your color in. Now if you haven't connected that line correctly, you won't be able to drag and drop the color in. Next, let's go ahead and create a new layer, and let's tap on that layer, drawing assist it, and then drag that layer underneath the body, because the body now is going to sit in front of a lot of this. So then we're going to go to the legs. So we're going to create these little sort of pointy little legs down here like so, and then go all the way to your start point so that you can drag and drop your color in like so. Then let's go ahead and do the same again. Let's create a new layer, tap on that layer and drawing assist it. We want to position this underneath the legs now, because we have to bear in mind how all of our layers are stacking on top. And then when we take a look, we want to draw in the tail. So you could start down here or you could start up here. I'm going to start up here and meet down at that point like so. And then again, just go all the way across either side, side to side, so that you can drag and drop your color in like so. And we've got another shape. And now we're going to take a look at the wings. Now the wings are going to work in the same sort of fashion. So we're going to go to our layers and create a new one. Let's drag it underneath everything we've done so far. And we're going to tap on that layer and we're going to drawing assist it. Then we're going to go to our brush library, and if you've downloaded the brush pen variation that I've put in the description down below that mentioned in the intro, you'll have this extra brush here. Now it's a variation of the brush pen, but it's got a certain level of opacity and weight to it that matches up nicely to this. And then what we're going to do is making sure our layer is drawing assisted, which it is, and then we're going to draw in the wings across these lines here, and then we'll fill the gaps with another layer as well. So my brush size is set to about 3%, which should be pretty good for this. Now if we just quickly take a look at this brush, when we zoom in, it's not a dot as such, it's kind of a flat ellipse there, or like an oval. So we have to bear that in mind when we do our lines. You know, as you go like that, it's a nice thick line, but if you were to say go sideways, it's a little bit thinner. So bear that in mind as you start. So we're going to go up this side here and get all the way to the top. Hold your pen down at the top if you want to get a lovely smooth arc. And again, just use the lines as a guide. You don't have to fit that perfectly. Let's do the same here, except the only difference with this one is you might not be able to hold your pen down at the top. It'll want to straighten it out as a line. So just do your very best to link right up to that. Then let's go ahead and draw in the top level of the arc into here. And then we can start roughly here and draw in the next line. And again, if you want to get a nice smooth line, just hold your pen down and you get a nice arc. And then let's fill in this gap here. And that is our wings in terms of the structure of them nicely drawn in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add the inside of the wings. So we're going to go up to our layers. We're going to create one new layer and drag it underneath the one we were just working on. We're going to change our color out and we're going to pick a different color. It doesn't really matter to start with, but I'm going to select this one here slightly to the right of the one that we've been using. So this one here. And then we're going to go back to that layer. We're going to make sure it's drawing assisted so we don't end up doing it twice. So tap on drawing assist. And then what we're going to do is we're going to follow the same lines that we've drawn and basically then just add in these extra arcs. So you could start here, for example, and then draw in the arc and then hold your pen down at the end if you want to, so you can nicely position it. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to draw in the next arc, but making sure we link from this point. So if you want to just draw like a little dot here in the background and then draw in your arc like so, then we know everything links together nicely. Likewise, let's draw in a link here. Let's draw in one here, and then let's draw in one there. And then what we need to do is, from this point here, we need to go all the way up behind the bat, and I am still holding and drawing it as we speak, going all the way around, but on the inside. I've got all the way up to the top here, and then I'm going to go all the way down the inside of this wing, making sure not to leave any gaps, and linking up to the very first point that we started on. That should allow us then to drag and drop our colour in, and the wings will be nice and full, and now we can start moving on to the highlights. Now, as you can somewhat tell from the background, we've got a light source and it's coming from here, right at the very top. So we need to bear in mind that it's going to shine down and it's going to hit all those different surfaces and primarily be from that top angle. So anything underneath will be nice and shadowed. So we've got quite a contrasting, strong light source. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each layer and just colour it and highlight it as it should be. So we can turn off your drawing guide if you want to and turn it off. Just as a little tip here, even though you turn the drawing guide off, if your layers are still assisted, they will still work with the Symmetry tool. So we don't actually need to see that line down the middle. And for this, I'm going to use a particular brush for my colouring in. I'm going to go to my options of charcoals. And under charcoals, I'm going to use the Willow Charcoal. Now, if you want to use a different brush, by all means do so. You could use a soft air brush if you want to get a really smooth look. But this one here, really like the textures. And it's also good to just change it up a little bit from time to time. So I'm going to use the Willow Charcoal, and then the brush size for each shape will probably vary and will jump in between different sizes. A little tip before we get started, if you go to your actions, you go to preferences and you turn on brush cursor. If I hover over a dark area here, for example, you can see around the edge of my brush or my pen tip, you can see the brush shape, which allows you just to know if you're about to bring that shape into where you're colouring in. So let's take a look at all our layers, and I'm simply going to start at the very top of our design itself and make my way through all of it. So at the very top, we've got the pupils for the eyes. Now we're not actually going to make any change here to them. The only thing we will do is we're going to tap on them and we're going to clipping mask them to the eyeballs that we drew in before. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer and tap on that layer and clipping mask it. Now don't worry about your layer count at this point if you're getting a bit anxious of it. We will be colouring in each shape individually. This is just the only one where we create an additional layer sort of on top. So for this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab this light grey here, or even the top one to start with, so we're not too harsh. And the light source is coming down from the top, so we need to create that sort of 3D look to it. So I'm going to sort of brush my pen round. So the brush size is going to be set to about 3%. And the one thing we have to do is go back to that layer, tap on it and make sure it's drawing assisted, meaning now we can draw on both sides at the same time. So we're going to draw in like a circular motion around the outside and then leave sort of here as a sort of lighter area. So I'm going to go round here in a circular motion, leaving sort of the top area, and then just adding in a bit of a sort of very light grey coating to it to start with. And then I'm going to go ahead and switch my colour up to, say, a darker tone. You could use black, you could use this dark colour here on the second column. And we're going to kind of replicate that again, but just go towards the edges a little bit more. So around the top, around the bottom, and then you might have to take your brush on and off. And you can see I'm practically drawing on the outside of the eye, and then I'm slowly bringing in the shape of the brush so that I'm in control about how far I go in and out of the shape. And starting outside, you can then build up the colour a little bit more. So I'm going around a lot more, back on myself, creating that sort of spherical look to everything. And we will be drawing in some brows up here, so we can then start to maybe darken up just at the top here a little bit more, like so. And if your drawing guide, the stencil that I provided, is getting in the way, no worries, we can go to our layers and turn that off, and you'll be able to get a more accurate look at your eyes here. So I need to go a little bit more around the middle here, just to make sure we get that full symmetrical look to everything. So going around, back on myself, like so. And then I'm going to switch the colour up to black just once. So at the bottom, pick either one of these, they're very close to black. And I'm going to go just right around the edges. And you can come back to your layers at any point at the end if you want to like darken up some shadows or improve some highlights maybe. But I'm just going right around the edge of the eye there, just to try and darken it up a little bit more. And then just very quickly before we move on to the highlights, I'm just going to grab that light grey again and just give the centre a very, very light coating just to give some texture in there. That's all we want to do, is just add a little bit of texture. And now on the same layer we're going to add a highlight, so I'm going to switch my colour out to white, and I'm going to go ahead and tap on that layer. I'm going to turn off the drawing assist for a moment, and then I'm going to go to my colours and select white from the palette here. And then that will allow me to just draw in a highlight here, and then I can do the same on this side here as well. Just make sure the light sources are the same, and then we've got that really cool reflective look in the eyeball. And what we also want to do is just add in a very little white coat right around the edge of the bottom of the eye here, just to represent that sort of spherical look. And because we've not got the drawing assist turned on for a second, we'll just do it on both sides. So just adding in a little bit of highlight around the bottom edge of both the eyes. And then when you zoom out, you've got a nice crystal looking eye with a nice cool reflection on the top of it. Now let's move on to the next part down in our design. So taking a look at our layers, it's actually then the teeth and then the mouth area. So with the teeth, we're going to go ahead and we're going to tap on that layer and we're going to alpha lock the layer. We're going to switch the colour out to this dark grey here, so that in the second column, the middle one. And then what we're going to do to start with is just very lightly give the whole thing a coat of colour. So what we're doing there is just adding a bit of texture of the brush so that all the textures are the same. I'm going to reduce the brush size down even smaller to about 2 or 1%, and I'm just going to darken up the inside of the teeth on both sets. So something like this. You can make it a bit dramatic if you want to, and then what you could do is then zoom in and then just add in a shadow from the top as well, because that's where our light source is coming from. You could really darken that up and add in that nice little bit of shadow on the teeth. Let's then move on to the next layer down, which is the tongue. So with the tongue, we could add 2 different variations of the colour. So let's tap on it and alpha lock it. Let's go to our colours and let's grab the dark colour to start with. And that'll obviously be further back in the mouth, so we can just coat the back area in a very light version of this texture. So we get a little bit of the darker tones there, and I've then gone a bit lighter here just to bring in some more colour. And then I'm going to go and switch it out to the lightest pink, and then I'm going to just in a circular motion on the right hand side and then slowly come towards the middle, just create a circular motion of colour, and that will give us almost like a line down the middle just to give you that sort of curved tongue look. Next, we're going to take a look at the layer down, which is the inside of the mouth, and again let's alpha lock it so we can only draw within it. And I'm actually going to leave the back area dark, but I'm going to bring in the darkest pink, so this one here on our palette. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sort of roughly out here and then bring that colour in, and then just keep going until I sort of leave that sort of back area of the throat almost a little bit darker, and that shadow coming down from the top as well. And you can just build that colour up in here till you get like a little glow like that from the bottom. That's up to you how much you want to add in highlight wise, it's totally your call, but I think something like that looks pretty cool. It's nice and subtle. Let's then go to our layers. What's the next one down? It's the nostrils. So for the nostrils, we're going to go ahead and alpha lock the layer. We're going to go ahead and change our colour out to, let's pick the white. Let's be nice and bold with our colour. And with the highlights coming down this way and obviously the nostrils going back inside the head, the only thing we really need to do is just very lightly go backwards and forwards, build up the colour, and then maybe add a brighter tone right on the edge of a little bit of white. And all that does, if you want to, just very lightly as well, go over the whole nostril just to add a bit of texture. But all that does is just give a little glimmer of highlight right on the edge here. Like so, that's looking pretty cool. Let's then move on to the next layer down, which is the full nose. So on the nose, we're going to alpha lock it. We're then going to go ahead and build up all the colour tones. So we started with the middle one, so we can use the darker tones here just to really build up the shadows. So let's do the shadows first. Let's tap on the darkest pink here. And then we're going to go ahead, and the bottom side of the nose would be a lot darker. So we're going to build up that colour. And again, what you kind of want to achieve very lightly is just give a brush. You could even literally go over the whole thing, a brush of this colour, which will just give some texture onto the whole thing, but be very gentle with it if you do this. Then what we're going to do is just darken up the bottom area here, adding in a lot more colour in this area, and then build it up into the middle of the nose. And then we can go ahead and start to add in our highlights to build up on top of it. So let's switch out to the light pink again. All those highlights are coming from the top, so we can really brighten up these top edges on either side. And then I'm sort of pivoting my hand, shout out to Ross, and then bringing in that extra colour as I bring it into the centre of the nose. Reduce the brush size down even smaller to about 1%, I think, just to be a bit more accurate. And then the other thing we'll do is we'll add in a little bit straight down the middle, like so, but also a little bit around the bottom edge here of the nostril, and then fade that up and out. Now that will just give you a little bit of a highlight there and just give you that curvature look to everything. Now it's up to you how harsh or light you want your highlights and shadows to be. I've got a very harsh look that's going to be throughout the whole thing, so I'm going to go ahead and switch my colour out to black again now. And then where I've got my darker tones, I'm just going to emphasise them. So a bit of a darker under shadow here of the nose. I think they tend to look a bit more dramatic, and with something like this, it's meant to be a bit spooky, you can add in those darker tones. So that's a little bit of a black edge around the bottom there, fading up towards the middle. And then let's do the same, let's switch it out to white, and let's add in those really punchy white highlights on the top. So just add in those colours up and down that edge there, mainly sort of punching out the middle area here, and then a little bit of light in there in the centre. And then we've got quite a dramatic nose. Now this will all start to come together now once we really build up every layer, but you can already see all the textures on each one of the items that we've added in already. Let's take a look at our layers and what's next. We've got the head, so let's alpha lock it, and we're going to start with shadows first because it's easier to do a shadow and then put a highlight on top of it. So we've got the light grey here, so what you could now do is really start to build the colour up. So let's pick this colour here beside it on the second row, the second colour. Now you could increase your brush size here to say something about 5%, and then you could just very lightly go over the entire layer, just adding in some texture, which will then add in that sort of speckled look to everything, and that really gets your whole design going. And then with your brush size set to a bit smaller for accuracy, you can now start to work out where you want to add your highlights and your shadows. So obviously with the lighting coming from the top, the darker edges are going to be down the bottom. So let's just immediately go down to the bottom edge and really start to add in those shadows down here. Another shadowed area would be underneath the nose, where that would be casting a big shadow. The eyes themselves would also cast a shadow, so we can add in a nice little bit of grey underneath the eyes. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of a sort of eyebrow, sort of frown look at the top, as well as some rounded sort of cheek areas in a second. So I'm going to start adding in where I think I want to add these little sort of creases in the head. So just above the eye, I've reduced my brush size down to about 2 or 1%, and then you want to go from sort of left to right in a curvature sort of look to it, build up sort of a brow look up there, and then bring it into the centre a tiny bit, because what we'll do is afterwards we'll build a highlight on top of it and it will look perfectly like a crease. And then let's add in some darker areas in the mouth, or around the nose even. But here in the edge of the mouth, we'll also add in that darker area, like so. So just a little bit of dark area in here. And then let's just add in then sort of a rounded look here, which is where we're going to add somewhat like a cheekbone. So around here, little curve there. So you can see I've added in a curve and a curve there. Let's then take a look at the top of the head, where we'll just add in a little bit of darkness in these areas here, because again we can build the colour up on top of them very nicely, and then around the side of the head as well, and then maybe around towards the middle like that. So creating that real rounded facial feature look. And then let's just add in a little bit more around the eyes and the underside of the eyes. Now we've used grey, we can go ahead and darken up the tone. So let's go ahead and pick the dark colour in the bottom left of the palette, so the bottom of the first column. And then let's just start to emphasise basically everything we've already done. So taking a look, where is our darkest highlights going to be again? So underneath the nose, we're going to add in a nice dark area here, like so. Underneath the eyes, we're definitely going to add in a nice dark. I'm just repeating my motion over and over again just to build up. I say that all the time, just building up the colour. It's always the way to go. You don't want to be too dramatic and too dark with your highlights straight away and your shadows. That's looking cool. Let's go ahead and do the very bottom edge of the face. Really darken that up now. Really emphasise the lighting. Let's then take a look and reduce the brush size to about 2 or 3%. I'm going to go around the edge, because again, we can always put a highlight on top of it. So right around the edge of the head, on the right and left hand side. And then just going into these highlighted areas for a second, just to add in a bit of texture. And we're just building and building everything up here. I'm then going to go ahead and change brush size down a little bit smaller now, so that we can start to emphasize these brows. So in the darker area right underneath it, really emphasize those brows that we just drawn in. That's looking cool. And then I just want to darken up this area here of the lip, just adding in a little bit more darkness underneath that nose, emphasizing the light source even more. And then again, let's build up the color under the eye a bit more. Create that real socket look to it. And now we've done all of that, we can go ahead and add in our highlights. So let's switch it out. You can go to a lighter gray now, and again, build that color up. So let's pick that top one in the top left-hand corner of the palette. And where do we want to emphasize? So now we're doing the reverse. So the lighting's going to hit, say, this cheekbone area. So with my brush size set to, it's all the way down to 1%. I'm just going backwards and forwards on this area here, creating that sort of curved arc look to the top of the cheekbone there. Likewise, we've added in our brows, but we also need to add in a top highlight on the top of it, just to make sure we've got a contrast against the shadow. So that's nice and emphasized. And then let's go ahead and add in the main highlight, which is coming right from the top. So increase the brush size to about 4%, and just in a circular motion, build up that highlight right on the top of the head of the bat, bringing it maybe down into the middle. And then now that will really start to sort of show you the contrast between your two different areas. I'm going to add in a little highlight here just on the edge of the lips, even like the bottom lip. So just going backwards and forwards, building up that colour until we get something nice and bright like that. That's looking cool. And then I'm just going to switch it out to white, and then I'm going to just add in a nice bright highlight right on the top of the forehead, basically adding in that brighter area. And I think the rest of it is bright enough that you don't need to add in any more. So just a nice little bright highlight on the top of the head. Looks really cool. And look at that face, it's really coming together now with the animated looks. So at this point, if you're going to continue tinkering, just hit the pause button, and then you've got something as a reference to go ahead and work out where your shadows and highlights need to be adjusted. So that is arguably the sort of most detailed areas that sort of build up on. The rest now should be relatively straightforward now that we understand sort of what we're trying to achieve. So let's go to our layers. The next one down is the pink layer on the inside of the ear. So let's tap on it, alpha lock it. Let's go ahead and add in our darker colors first. So let's grab the dark pink and then increase the brush size to about 5 or 6% so that we can just quite quickly stroke underneath the ear there and bring that down. And again, just a light coat just down here just to add that texture, but darken up the underside of the ear. Then let's go ahead and add in our next tone, which will be the dark black in the bottom left. And then let's just add in that shadow just underneath the top and emphasize that out a little bit more, like in this crevice and as it peeks out towards the edge. Then we add in our highlight, so let's switch it out to the bright pink and reduce the brush size down a little bit more just for a bit of accuracy. And then from here, I'm going to add in sort of a curved area in this area down here. We don't want to go too high, and we also don't really want to go to the edge. We kind of want to show like a crease, and then the underside of the ear sort of curving round on itself. And you could emphasize that even more if you want by switching back to the dark pink and then just giving that bottom edge a sort of dark coat like so, just to emphasize that feature. And then let's switch out to white, and again reduce your brush size down for accuracy and just emphasize your highlights. So we've got a nice bright highlight in here of the ear, and then we've got that cool little look on the inside. The next layer now should be the top part, so let's alpha lock the full ears, and then let's go ahead and switch out to our shadow color. Now because this is grey in a very small area, I would go straight to black, and then I would very lightly give yourself a whole coat, just very lightly to add that texture in. And then just the underside here, add in your shadow like so, going all the way around the bottom edge, all the way, emphasizing that shadowed area, and then switch back to white. And then let's go ahead and just do the top area. like so, and then we've got a really cool highlight coming from the top. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at our layers, and the next one down is the body. So we're going to alpha lock the body, and then we're going to go ahead and build up the same tones. Let's do our shadow tones first. Let's grab this dark color here, and then we're going to go increase our brush size, because it's quite a big area, something maybe about 6 or 7%. Also, the brush size isn't really sort of necessary to sort of maybe know for this, but I'm up to about 7 or 8 now. It just matters how quickly you want to sort of get through the shape. So where's our shadows? Well, it's most definitely underneath the neck. So we're going to add in a nice shadow here underneath there, and then round the bottom part of the body. So we're going to go round here, and the body's rounded, so let's round that shape off. And because this is our base layer, we just give a very light coat in the center, very light, and then just go around your darker areas even more, just emphasizing them, like so. Now we've got that, let's go ahead and do our really dark shadow. So let's switch it out to the black in the bottom left, and let's go right around that bottom edge, emphasizing that area quite nicely. I'm bringing that shadow nicely in. What I mean by that is I'm just sort of bringing it up and into the body, around the edge, and then underneath the chin and onto the chest a little bit, just to show that shadow and where it's hitting. And then we've got a lovely big area in the middle now, so let's just come in a little bit with the texture. Stutter there. Let's then add in the color of our highlight. So the first one is the one in the top left, and in a circular sort of backwards and forwards motion in the center, we can add in that highlighted area. And because now we've got that really cool strong contrasted shadow underneath, our shadows meet our highlights quite nicely there. And then let's switch out to white, and then reduce the brush size for accuracy, and then just add in a nice bright chest highlight there in the middle, almost like so. And that really emphasizes where our light source is coming from. Now it's up to you again, how dark or how contrast and moody you want it to look. I might switch mine back out to black again, so that I can just really darken up the bottom area. I want my contrast between my shadows and my highlights to be nice and strong, and right in here too. Making sure not to touch our highlight area now, because that's all done. Let's go to our next layer. So the next layer is the legs. We're going to tap on it, we're going to alpha lock it, and let's then again switch out to our base shadow color, which is this one here, the second one on the second column. And we're going to reduce the brush size down to about 4 or 5%, and we're going to stroke around the bottom area here where the body is getting in the way, and then maybe just under here as well we add in a shadow. Then let's switch it out to our main shadow color, so this dark black in the bottom left. Emphasize this shadow here and the inside, and basically redo what you've just done but the darker tones, and we're building everything up. And then you could just add in a light highlight, so just this base foundation highlight just on the edge here. That's really everything you really need to do. I just added a tiny little stroke of that on the outside just to show that it's a bit light and just touching them, but not too much that it requires a very bright white highlight. Now you're probably getting a bit fed up with me repeating the process, but it is a repetitive process now because we've got all of our shapes. So we're going to go down to our next layer, we're going to alpha lock it, it's the tail. And so let's start again. Let's go for our foundation grey. We're going to build up where we know the shadows are, so right underneath the body, pretty much down the entire thing, so we'll give a whole light coat there. Switch out to black. We're going to add in that shadow at the top area here, a little bit up there as well. And then I'm actually going to add a shadow right on the edges, just to round off the shape, give it a 3D look to it. And then let's switch out to our foundation highlight, and only the foundation highlight, reducing the brush size down, and maybe just a tiny little slither in here. We don't want to add in too much because it's quite a dark area, but something like that is good. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at our layers, and what is next? We have the wings. So we've only really got 2 more things to do. We've got the main structure of the wings and then the wings themselves. So the structure of the wings, we're going to alpha lock the layer, and we're going to go ahead and change out to our base shadow color. Now it's up to you. I mean, the top area here was a very slim area and we just used black and white. I would say you could probably do that, and let's actually do it. Let's go straight to black. And what we'll do is, first of all, I'm going to increase the brush size to a very large size, so something big that I can go left to right across the canvas and just give everything a stroke of texture. You'll see in certain areas now it's got a bit speckled, and that's fine. We just want to add in a little bit of colour without spending too much time going over each individual item. Now we'll reduce the brush size down for accuracy, and let's add in our shadow. So really the highlight would be touching the outer edge here. So on the inside edge here, I'm going to darken that up a lot. And that will be pretty much the same for each line. So I'm going all the way up, and especially up into this top area here, where I'm just starting outside of the shape, so these lines, and then building the colour up and inside of them. We can take a look at the rest of the object down here and add in some nice shadows on these lines, like so. And then we switch up the shadow direction, and let's add it on this side here and blend it up and out like so. And then bring that shadow all the way up and meet those darker areas up there. The actual main area here on the underside of the wing, now it's looking a bit sort of, can't really work it out too much now because of our light coat. You can roughly see sort of where that edge is, and drawing that in, I'm going to go straight across that line, just adding in that underside highlight, or shadow should I say. And let's do the same, just add in that shadow on this side here that fades out, and then it switches onto this side here, because that light source is coming straight down. And then this one here, we're just going to add in a dark area here. Now, it might be looking very dark obviously at this point, but now let's switch it out to our white, and this will really bring it to life. So let's start at the top. I'm going to go right around the top edge here, adding in a really nice strong white highlight up into that top edge like so. And then we're going to have to do a very long swoop here, make sure we don't go too far inside the shape. Just adding that swoop all the way up to the top, adding in that brighter edge like so. Let's do the same on the inside, so let's start on the non-shadowed side, where just in here really we're going to add in a little bit of a highlight, so something like that is good. Then on this side, let's add in a highlight just on this inner side like so. That's looking cool. Now that's actually all we need to do for these parts. We can go ahead now and go to the big part of the wing, so let's alpha lock them, and we're going to do the whole process one more time. Now because we've already set the background colour of the wings to the correct colour of the dark grey, we're going to go straight in with black, but you're going to have to be very gentle with this. So go to black, and at the top just build up that colour right in these top areas up here, and bring that colour down the wings. And again, you want to kind of maybe just go very lightly over the whole thing, just to add in a bit of texture in the wings. And then at the top here, go backwards and forwards on yourself, building up the colour. Every stroke that you go backwards and forwards on it, it will build up the colour, and we're going to continue moving that all the way down the wings, creating almost like a gradient effect, but making sure right up here in these darker areas it is almost black. So something like that looks good. Maybe a tiny bit towards the bottom edge here of these curves in the wings. Little circular motion there. And then let's go ahead and add in our next highlight. So let's pick this colour here in the top left of our palette. And in this area here really, we want to start adding in some highlights. So something, let's increase the brush size about 9%. And then in this area here, we're creating almost like that sort of shimmer look all the way through the wings. So going all the way backwards and forwards, and you can see I've got a bit bolder there with adding in the colour, and it got a bit brighter in those two areas like that, which is actually what we want to achieve. And now let's switch out to white in our palette, and let's be very, very gentle and just emphasize some of those highlights in the wings. Now what I'm doing now is I'm just creating some arcs in the wings here, just up and down, kind of mimicking the same shape as the lines here, just to show some curvature in the shape itself. So by doing that, you end up showing that it's kind of like an arc shape, and then bringing that colour in a little bit like that. And then let's emphasize those highlights a smidge, trying to be super gentle. Don't want to add in too much white in there, it'll be really obvious and very punchy. So let's go across here, adding in that colour, adding in a little bit more white in here. And this kind of comes down to how sort of bright you've been with your other highlights as well. So kind of want everything to match up. Like so, that's looking cool. And the other thing you need to consider is, how does the rest of the bat affect the wings? Well, my body here is very dark around the outside of my bat, so I need to emphasize that on the actual body of the wings, just to make sure that they are also being shadowed in the correct area. So I'm going to switch out to black, and I'm going to very bravely just sort of add in that under shadow here of the lighting from the body affecting the wings. And you can be super brave with how dark you go all the way down to black pretty much, if you want to, depending on how harsh you've been with the rest of your design. Likewise, I'm going to add in a little bit more up here in behind the face that matches up to the body, just to really darken up that area. It's really bringing all the contrast together. And the only other thing I'm going to do is also go back to my layers. I'm going to take a look at the legs. I'm going to darken them up a smidge, just get rid of some of those highlights, just a little bit more. And then pinching out with 2 fingers and going full screen with 4, we end up with today's finished tutorial, where we've got this really cool bat with a really awesome texture from this charcoal brush. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, a bit longer than normal, but if you did, please drop a like down below, it helps the channel out an awful lot. And if you're new here, I post Procreate content every single week, so if you'd like some tutorials to follow along with, hit that subscribe button down below. But if you're already running out of my tutorials, there's a link in the description down below to my Patreon, where you can also get access to even more tutorials every single month and join what is an amazing community on my Discord, as well as extra benefits on there and sneak peeks of upcoming tutorials. And with all that said, I'll see you in the next one.